insight bit of Mahamudra, we'll talk more about concentration meditation. Okay? So concentration meditation, shamatha in Sanskrit, shine in Tibetan, single point of concentration, little words. This technique invented by these Indians before the Buddha, one of the key Buddhist techniques that's absolutely necessary to accomplish the single pointedness, the subtle level of single pointedness, absolutely, utterly necessary to accomplish in order to realize emptiness. So as Mama says, so anyway, meditate on your mind. So maybe you're not sure what it means to meditate on your mind. The Mahamudra way is to concentrate on the clarity of your mind, its conventional nature. But we start by focusing on our concepts, the views of our own thoughts. In other words, in order to discover the clarity of our consciousness, the object of our meditation, we first observe the thoughts. By becoming quiet, we purify the grosser levels of our consciousness, all the dualistic thoughts about good and bad, the worldly superstitions, the artificial concepts, the negative thoughts. This creates space. Whether you're confused or miserable, blissful or in some fantastic clear light experience, it doesn't matter. Simply watching the feelings, the views of your own mind automatically leads to concentrating on the clarity of the mind. We observe the thoughts and then we let go. No intellect. We don't analyze our thoughts. Leaving the mind as it is like this is the special emphasis of this meditation. In our gradual path meditations, we analyze. But Mahamudra meditation emphasizes not analyzing, because when the mind is analyzing, it's trembling, shaking, isn't it? So Tsongkhapa says that when we contemplate the consciousness, we should not follow any object, such as form or colour or sound, or even the image of a Buddha, a mantra, a syllable. These we should abandon. We refer to this approach as non-conceptual, non-superstitious. Of course, our habit to follow the five sense objects is strong, so we need to develop the skill in meditation to stay on the consciousness itself. I think for Lama Tsongkhapa, using our own mind as the object of concentration is a very sensitive, direct way to realize the universal reality of our consciousness. It easily eliminates the superstitions and confusion. This is the point, which easily leads to the universal reality of non-duality, Mahamudra. So then Lama talks about the two main obstacles to concentration. And this is taught right in the Sutra teachings. This is the classic teachings about single point of concentration. It's not so unique to Mahamudra. So single point of concentration, you know, is, as I said, is described in terms of 9 stages of cultivation. When you finally achieve the 9th and you've completely, you know, totally completed the experience of single point of concentration, when you've got that, then when the mind is utterly focused, utterly absorbed, it's not, it's at this subtle level. So they say the greatest yogis can maybe get it in 6 months. But for people like us, ordinary people, it might take, I mean, even Venerable Rene, who's advanced, I'm sure he's a bodhisattva. Can we close the door, please? Do we mind closing the door? Thank you. He, over years, I don't know what stage he's at now, but I know that 18-month retreat, it's interesting. By the way, it's one of the interesting, he said that he knew he couldn't get past the 5th of the 9 stages in that scenario, which is also very blessed. And so one of the many things they talk about, the prerequisites for a place to be appropriate to get single point of concentration, because the place is really important. Because as Rene said, as they say in the teachings, your mind gets so sensitive, even the tiniest shift in the wind can be very distressing. For the greatest yogis, nothing distresses, but when we're beginners, So it was interesting that I interviewed him, for this interview, I interviewed him at Courtin Monastery. And this is back 20 years ago. And even then it was quite busy. I mean, it's like a new village now, down in the valley. It's not so busy with, dogs and sounds and people. It's quite a busy place. But he said his mind got more subtle in meditation, more easily at Courtin than in the mountains. And that shows something about all the Tibetans wax lyrical about the the blessed energy of the Kathmandu Valley. When we go there these days, you just see pollution, cars everywhere, pollution, filthy. They really feel it's a really pure, blessed, pristine, spiritual energy. So he said that. He said at Courtin, busy, his mind got more subtle more easily. This is interesting. So the two main obstacles then to getting concentration are the two tendencies of our mind that we're super familiar with. Either your mind goes berserk, you can't control your thoughts, or the extreme one is you go to sleep. They're the two extremes of what they call the excitement, or the mind is dull. The mind's excited or the mind is dull. And so really getting concentration is actually this incredible ability to go to navigate these two tendencies, and the mind is either in one or the other at whatever degree all the time. So it's almost like concentration is this invisible place between these two, because we can see even in our daily life, rather, super busy, the mind going, and you can channel that energy. It can be quite skillful, but very, very busy mind. This is attachment energy. One of the functions of attachment is to have lots and lots and lots of thoughts. And then we can channel all that, into doing useful things. So when the mind's berserk in meditation, of course you can't concentrate. So that's why the prerequisites to even get to the mountains, to get concentration, already you're a realised being practically. You've got to have completely no responsibilities on this planet. You can't have mortgages and wives and children and babies and houses and bills and things and dramas and ex-mothers-in-law who are angry with you. You've got to have completely turn your back and disappear. If you can turn your back now when you walk out this door and not turn back and keep walking to the mountains, not one of us is prepared for that, We've got these kind of houses around our heads. So to really even be ready to go to the mountains, you've got to have already a really subdued mind, have no interest in any food, couldn't care, whatever you eat, you'll be happy. That, these days, is a miracle. We've got so many allergies, all of us. We have these kind of little booklets carrying around what we can and can't eat. We're so neurotic, with food alone. But you've got, one of the prerequisites is to have no interest and you don't care. You'll eat whatever you're given. You don't care. That's like insane. No responsibilities of any kind. You can't just,
You might as well not to go to the mountain. If
Why?
you are in this stage, you don't need to go to the mountain.
Oh, you do. Now you get concentration in the mountain. You don't get concentration in the town. Not possible. You've got to have a conducive physical environment where it's completely quiet, not even running water. No wild animals. It's got to be a very, very special place. Even this place up in the mountains, I said, Renee, in Spain, totally perfect. Dalai Lama said it was so special. He said still he knew his mind couldn't get more subtle there. So it really needs to be a very special type of physical environment. Of course, if you hardly realise, you can get concentration in the freeway, but you need in the beginning to really get it, because it's such a it's not that easy. It's enormously difficult. So you've got to have completely subdued all your sensory requirements. You can, and of course, if you've got attachment to thinking about sex all day, well, you'll be a disaster. Forget it. Or food, or the normal things we all think about. Your mind's going to be quite subdued already, Content with whatever food you have, no interest in clothing, things, no worries, no anxieties about all the people back home, what they're thinking and all this. So, yes, you're right, already pretty advanced. Then you get the right conducive environment. Then you might get, if you work really hard, for several years, you might get single point of concentration. So that alone is really difficult. And the Buddha would say, we've had it in countless past lives. We haven't used it to realise emptiness, so we've kind of lost the plot, So the two main obstacles right there, when you're there, this is the real work, is to be navigating between this natural tendency of the mind to be excited, and that goes to incredibly subtle levels, of course, when you're a meditator, or the other tendency, which is the opposite, which is the mind to become dull. So that in most people, this is where, I say that most people's understanding of mindfulness meditation, Buddhist mindfulness meditation, Buddha doesn't own it, he doesn't have a copyright on it, they don't call it mindfulness meditation, it's called single point of concentration, it's called shine or shamatha, single point of calm abiding is the English translation. So mindfulness, I don't know where that term came from, but now it's the one that's used, and it's got many variations of it, and that's fine. But if we're talking Buddhist meditation, there are many really, misconceptions about it. But part of our problem, which now being me controversial, talking, oh, he's not there. Where's he gone? Has he gone home?
No.
So,
Where is he? Abraham's point. We all think spiritual experience is personal. Even suggesting to you, you know. No, what's your name, darling? No, I know your name. I forget. Leah, okay. Never mind. Cancel you. Fine, cancel you. But I think there is a tendency, Abraham was making that good point, that spiritual experience is personal and we're all allowed to have any experience that we like, and because it's personal, because it's mine, it's valid. Well, I think that's nihilism. That's really... So if we were practicing Bach, rigorous theoretical music of Bach, you can have your experience, but it's within the framework of Bach's theories, isn't it? You can't just play any old thing and say it's Bach. Don't call it Bach, call it Robina. You get my point here? But if it's Bach you're playing, you can have your experience within Bach, but still it's within this very tight framework, but there's still masses of creativity within that. The same here. We're talking about scientific view of reality here. You can't just have your own experience of emptiness and say it's valid. And that is a common view of what people think spiritual is. And I think it's quite shocking, quite irresponsible, actually. So think about my point. So then the views about, again, we have this deep instinctive tendency, I think. We think meditation is either, it's a relaxation technique. This technique, I swear to you, has got zero to do with learning to relax. It's learning to do the exact opposite. It's learning to focus the mind. Yes, you need to have a relaxed mind, but that's a very fine thing to get when you're a beginner. Like, let's say, expecting a person who doesn't know how to drive to learn for the first time and tell them to relax. I'm sorry, that's not the right advice. You'll die in a minute. Even on a freeway, even if you're a good driver, you have to have an incredibly sharp, alert mind. We think when we say relaxed, we hear spaced out. Now, we all need relaxing, so please relax. Please do these wonderful yoga techniques. They are fantastic. And space out. Yes, it's very helpful. But this is not that, number one. Number two, it is not an alternative to a pill. And almost by default in the modern world, we would think that meditation is what you do when you're having problems. Like you've got serious problems with your boyfriend. You're nearly going crazy with anxiety. Oh, I've heard meditation helps. So we do see it as an alternative to a pill. Whereas if I'm in love with David and everything is perfect, everything is beautiful, life is marvellous, and someone says I should meditate, you'll think, I'll think they're insane. Well, why should I? Everything is good. We really believe it's like that, That's another misconception. The other one is this obsession with this thinking that the reason that what meditation is as a technique, concentration, is to make the thoughts go away, to not have thoughts. Or four, we think it's to feel good. So any of those things could happen, but that's not the purpose of the technique. It's a very simple thing. The technique is to learn. You're learning, you're training your mind to concentrate. And because it's not its tendency, and because we're addicted to all the crazy thoughts, or we're addicted to going to sleep, that's why it literally takes years to accomplish this outrageous capacity at a subtler level in your mind. So the best we can think if we say going beyond conceptual and beyond sensory, the only one we know is sleep. And then maybe the weird wacko things that happen in dreams. We don't have any techniques about working with that subtler level. That's what we're talking here. So it's a super sharp, refined, as Lama described, some of the states that you have, So the main obstacle is one, either the mind going berserk, which is completely continuous, non-stop, as we know. As long as we're awake, our mind is uncontrolled. That's the excitement level. And that can go to really subtle levels of excitement as they talk. And then the other extreme is what they call dullness. And the extreme of that is literally going to sleep. So what's happening is, like I said, there are many parts of our mind. We have to break all the components up into what piece is doing what in this meditation. So the commonest thing we say is, I'm meditating. And that's not wrong. But we think there's a piece in there called I that's doing the watching. No. So it's better And that's why the Buddhists talk this way about the mind. It's very helpful. Instead of saying, I'm angry, I'm jealous, I'm meditating, you say, there, you listen to the thoughts. Oh, that's angry thoughts. There's jealous thoughts. There's attention. There's this. There's vigilance. There's pieces, you know. So the parts, as I've been saying, the parts that are playing a role in this technique, well, you could say the very first one is attention. It's always there. We're always paying attention to something, except it's all over the place. So attention, we're trying to get it to stay on the same thing. So whether it's the breath or your mind, attention's doing the work. It has to be supported by the state of mind called, I'd rather call it not forgetfulness, because that's really what mindfulness is. It's not forgetfulness. If I have to walk from here to the door, I decide I will walk out the door. I stand up. I get halfway, and then someone distracts me, and then I go, what was I doing before? That's lack of mindfulness. Mindfulness isn't like a virtue where you have to watch what you're doing, and then someone says, be mindful, and they whack you with a stick. We treat it as like religion. You know, as Lama Zopa says, thieves need mindfulness. It's not forgetfulness. It's not forgetfulness. It's remembering what you're doing moment by moment without forgetting. That's the actual meaning of the mental state called mindfulness. In its nature, it is not virtuous. This is extremely important to understand. That's the crucial piece that you're training. The other piece that's there, as Dalai Lama calls it, the policeman, is called alertness or vigilance, or in some literature they call it introspection. You'd never think they refer to the same thing, which is unfortunate. And that's like a policeman. He calls it like that. Watching to check up everything, all the bits are doing their job properly, basically, simply speaking, you know. So clearly you've got to have other parts of your mind. You've got to have determination. You've got to have real determination, because, you know, it's not a happy experience watching your thoughts. It's totally boring watching your breath or watching your thoughts. It's not happy. It doesn't make us feel good at all. And that's the trouble. If we think that meditation is to feel good, and you happen to sit down, and some people do, and can feel very good, then you call it a good meditation. No, that's a mistake. A good meditation is if you develop some semblance of focus, concentration. You might have to make a lot of effort because the noises are bad outside. You have to make a lot of effort because your mind is berserk. But that's a good meditation. So the criterion of success isn't feeling good, isn't that you're relaxed, isn't that the thoughts went away, or isn't a vision. The criterion is that you've increased your capacity to not forget what you're doing moment by moment. So like you judge anything, it's in terms of how well you play the piano, how well you drive, not how well you feel, not how happy it feels, not how whatever. This is the criteria. It's very precise, a very detailed, precise thing. The ability to focus your mind. And you've got to be able to judge where you're at in terms of those 9 stages. Some days it'll be easier, some days it'll be hard. That's the way life is, you know. And so you've got this the mindfulness, or even the alertness. So at different stages, as you progress, you don't need to perfect. You perfected mindfulness, so you don't need to apply it anymore. At some stage, you perfect the alertness. You don't need to apply it anymore. And at some stage, concentration kicks in, and you get it immediately. And when you've perfected this, you can sit down in that instant, go straight to the subtle level when you've done it perfectly. Like every time you perfected piano, your hands go on the piano, and you play it instantly. That's when you've perfected this, you know. So that's the essence of it. Between these two extremes of going to sleep or spacing out and excitement. So one of the major dangers, this is even for every ordinary person, forget as you meditate, especially as you get more subtle, one of the major dangers is mistaking dullness for concentration. That can feel very pleasant. Like it's a feeling of sinking. There's no clarity there. So there's a way I like to talk about these two characteristics, and I think you'll understand. When you look at yourself when you're wide awake and wound up, running around life getting your jobs done, you're very focused. And the mind is very sharp. It's like really quick and sharp, isn't it? There's a sharpness. When you're very awake, the mind is sharp. That energy of sharpness is what we need to retain in meditation, but without the berserk. So we only have sharpness when the mind's busy. Are you seeing my point? Then when you look at your mind when you're dull, when the mind is spacing out, you're very still, aren't you? It's very calm, isn't it? Do you hear my point? So in meditation, we've got to retain the calm without the dullness. We've got to retain the sharp without the berserk. Can you hear that? And that's an impossible state of mind for us at the moment. We either have berserk, which has sharp, or we have dullness, which has calm. This is my way of putting it. Can you hear what I'm saying? So that's why it's like almost impossible to find this concentration. It takes unbelievable, lots of purification in the past, lots of practice, lots of teachings, lots of purification practice, lots of, giving up attachment, lots of accepting reality, really hard practice and work before you even get to the mountains to begin to get the concentration. This is an ideal scenario is what I'm talking. We can all practice it every day, but when you know what you're doing, if you know, then you know what the goal is, not just you feel good today, you don't feel good tomorrow, whatever. It's very superficial how we think about it. Very, very superficial. Do you have any questions about that? This is simply the first mode, concentration meditation. Calm about it. Yes. Sorry.
I
Go.
asked yesterday also about the alertness.
Alertness.
Yeah. I don't get the feeling of...
Yeah, if you're driving the car, you're focusing on driving, you're focusing on watching the road and making sure you stay in the lane, aren't you? And you're adjusting the speed and you're adjusting the brakes. And you understand, you're doing all that. But a part of your mind is sharp and you're aware of what's happening all around you, aren't you? And there's a part of your mind making sure that everything stays on track. That's alertness. It's like the policeman in your mind, watching all the bits and doing their right job. You're watching all the kids.
So that's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
What is the
Which
meaning
bit?
of doing the right job?
Concentrating, dear. What do you think? That means you haven't got the point. So can you get what concentration? You don't know what... Oh, that's it. See, we find it hard to hear this, even though the words are simple. So you don't understand what learning to concentrate means.
No, I don't understand your usage of the words alert.
I know that, but you just said, what's the job? You just said, what's the job? So what's the job in concentration meditation? What's the job you're trying to do? What's the job you're trying to accomplish in this discussion, in this meditation called concentration meditation? What's the job you're trying to do?
Focus.
On what in this case? On what? Let's say you decide to focus on your breath. The job is to focus on your breath. That's the job. So mindfulness is the ability to keep focused on the breath without forgetting the breath.
And what is alertness?
Alertness is watching so there's many parts of your mind all involved in this. Attention. There's attempting to get concentration, attempting to be mindful. Alertness is like watching, like a policeman, to make sure everything is all doing its right job. When you're driving the car, you've got to stay in the lane. You've got to be checking the cars, on the brakes sometimes, on the accelerator sometimes. You've got the cars here, the cars there. There's many things happening. Do you agree? There's one part of your mind. You see, we don't use these words. So there's one part of your mind that's overseeing everything, making sure everything's on track. Dalai Lama calls it a policeman. I can only tell you that. You have to think about it. Not helpful. Still not helpful.
Can you say another word about introspection?
No, that's another word that people use for alertness. It's another word that people use.
Which you don't find to be actual.
I don't find that word at all. That's personally me. Who am I? Scholars use it. I can't help it. I don't find that helpful. That's everybody's individual mind. Yes.
Is concentration dichotomic? Concentration or not concentrate? Or is it on a continuum? May I enjoy concentration in the way to the top, to the mountain?
I think I need to ask you to start again. I missed some of what you said. I'm so sorry. Start again, please. Forgive me.
I asked if the concentration is on a continuum, or is it something that I have it or not have it?
Oh no, absolutely. It's something you perfect it. That's why it takes years to accomplish it. That means it takes years to develop the ability to not have the mind berserk, not have the mind dull, to have this super sharp focus, like Lama talked, at a subtler level. And when you've perfected it, you can go there every time. And this state of mind is like a microscope of your mind that now you need to use to develop insight into emptiness. It absolutely has to be something you've perfected. But you can forget it. You can stop practicing it and you'll lose it. It's a skill, like playing the piano. I just use the analogy like that. You just don't play the piano well sometimes and then forget it the next day, do you? You've practiced it so that you can play the piano perfectly every day. Would you agree with that?
But not everyone is Mozart or Bach.
To the degree that, okay, I know that we're aiming to be Bach here. But okay, there's levels of concentration, there's levels of playing piano, but even if you're in grade 2, and if you're practicing every day, it's not as if one day you completely can't play anything, and then the next day you can play it perfectly. That would be impossible, wouldn't you agree? You must be insane if that happens. It's not as if one day you know the answer, that's 7 3s of 21. You know your maths, and the next day you have no idea. That's impossible, wouldn't you agree? Because you've practiced maths, and to the degree that you've internalized it, you know that much, and it's constant, but then you keep increasing it. So it's not just a random experience. What was that business about enjoying on the way to the mountain? What was that part? I heard you say that. What was that meaning?
I asked about the continuum. I asked if I can
Yes.
enjoy the concentration.
Oh yes,
in
you
the top, but,
enjoy.
enjoy, or may I have concentration in the process, but not only in the top? That was my question.
So have I answered your question or not? Are we not clear?
You provided me an answer.
Okay, good, fantastic. Okay, fantastic. Yes.
Is there a connection, is there a certain dependency between making the effort to do the practice of concentration and other advancement in the Dharma?
Other what?
No, I say otherwise.
Okay.
As a lazy person, I find it more difficult to sit in the morning, 20 minutes, make the concentration. I prefer to stay in my bed, read Dharma books.
Okay, I understand.
I'm asking,
Me too.
I'm asking, is this a skill that you do like gymnastic exercise? You have to do it because you cannot come from the side.
No, it can't come from the side. Not possible. No. It's like gymnastics. You've got to do it and do it and do it and do it until eventually.
The fact that you do advancement.
But all the other stuff you do helps you underneath. You're practicing virtue. My friend Venerable Renee said that there's no way in the world he could have just gone off to the mountains and got concentration unless he'd done the years of practice, purification, living in vows, study, and even his own teachings to others. All of that, that's one part of the preparation. Then you're more qualified to actually do the gymnastics.
Yeah, but I'm not an whole stage in your...
No, so most of us aren't, and most of us aren't practicing single point of concentration every day, but if we make the aspiration to do it, and all the work we are doing now, we'll eventually start. We've got to make the thought, though, even if it's next life, don't worry about it, if that makes sense to you. It's okay, but you've got to have the thought to want to do it. When I'm ready, say. When I'm ready.
No.
That's what you say, then it leads to it. Yes.
Is it, it makes difference if I sit, I have a place, I sit, or like if I'm not driving but in the bus?
So, darling, what's the question
The
about?
question is, do I need a special place
For what? For what, darling?
for practicing?
For practicing
meditation?
what, sweetheart?
Yeah, mindfulness meditation.
You mean concentration meditation?
Yeah.
But did you not hear me before? You mustn't have heard me. No, I'm so sorry, I speak so fast. The condition that you choose to do this is absolutely crucial. There's so many qualities the place has to have. I even said up in the mountains where it's pristine,
Yeah, I heard it.
even still he couldn't get past the fifth because it was, even at a subtle level, the tiniest wind can be distressing. Whereas Courtin Monastery, busy but blessed by the presence of centuries of holy beings, at a subtle level more
It's not my
conducive.
question. I heard it. My question is, if I didn't sit or if I sat in the morning, but I'm in the bus, is it effective? Like I have now 1 hour ride in a bus. Is it effective to sit in mindfulness, though there are voices and other things,
Well,
but it's a practice?
Why not? Try.
Why do you ask?
אני מנסה.
Why do you ask?
It is proper condition.
Why do you ask, darling?
Why do I ask?
Why do you ask?
Is it